You are 40 minutes late, so I hope you are at least interesting. Ryan Mitchell dropped into the empty chair before the alpha in the black suit could respond, placed his phone beside the candle, and tried to recover what remained of his dignity. Bellamy was the kind of downtown restaurant where the menus had no dollar signs and the servers somehow knew when a water glass was half empty. It was not where Ryan usually spent Friday nights, but his sister Megan had spent 3 weeks insisting that he needed to meet someone new. Her final instructions had been painfully simple. 7 o'clock, table near the window, black suit, alpha in his early 30s. Ryan had arrived at 7:40 after a delayed train and a 10-minute search for parking that ended 6 blocks away. Now he looked across the table at the man he assumed was Daniel Brooks and immediately understood why Megan had described him as intimidating. The alpha appeared to be in his early 30s, with neatly styled dark hair, a charcoal black suit, and the calm expression of someone who had never rushed for anything in his life. He did not look annoyed. He looked curious. "That depends," the stranger said. "Are you always this honest on first dates?" Ryan blinked. "Only when the other person makes me wait 40 minutes. One corner of the man's mouth moved slightly. "Interesting interpretation. You disagree? I have been sitting here since 7:15. Ryan checked his phone. Megan had definitely said 7. "Then I guess we are both terrible at this." "Apparently." Ryan exhaled and picked up the menu. "Good. Now that we have established mutual incompetence, I am Ryan." The alpha's gaze rested on him for a second longer than necessary. "I know." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Megan showed you my picture?" The man paused. "Something like that." Ryan accepted the answer because blind dates were already strange enough without conducting an interrogation. A server approached their table, saw the alpha, and immediately straightened. "Good evening, mister." The alpha lifted one finger slightly. The server stopped. "Another menu," he said. "Of course, sir." Ryan watched the server leave with surprising speed. "Do you come here often?" "Sometimes." "Because they seem terrified of getting your order wrong. They value good service." Ryan laughed. "That is the most diplomatic answer possible." For the first time, the alpha smiled properly, and Ryan felt some of his nervousness disappear. Maybe Megan had been right. Maybe he had spent too long refusing every introduction she suggested. "So," Ryan said, leaning back, "before we waste an entire dinner pretending to impress each other, I should warn you about something." "Go ahead." "I am not impressed by expensive watches, fancy cars, exclusive restaurants, or alphas who think money counts as a personality." The man slowly glanced at the watch beneath his cuff, then around the elegant dining room. "That is unfortunate." Ryan grinned. "You can still recover." "How?" "Be interesting." The alpha studied him with an expression Ryan could not read. At another table, 2 men had gone unusually quiet after noticing them. Near the bar, the restaurant manager kept glancing in their direction. Ryan noticed none of it. "All right," the alpha said. "What would you consider interesting?" "Something true. Nobody tells the truth on blind dates." The question seemed to catch him off guard. After a moment, he said, "Most people who sit across from me already know what they want from me." Ryan frowned. There was something unexpectedly lonely beneath the words. "Then tonight should be easy. I do not want anything from you except decent conversation and maybe dessert if this place has cheesecake." The alpha laughed softly. "Cheesecake can be arranged." Ryan smiled and reached for his water. "See? You are improving already, Daniel." The laughter disappeared. The man looked at Ryan, then at the empty chair across from him, as if finally confronting a decision he had been postponing since Ryan sat down. His name was not Daniel. He had never met Megan. And Adrien Hayes had known from the first second that the Omega sitting at his table was waiting for somebody else. Ryan expected the conversation to collapse after his accidental use of the wrong name. But Adrien only lifted his water glass and asked, "What kind of cheesecake?" Ryan stared at him. "That is your response. You said dessert was part of the agreement. New York style? Plain. No fruit pretending to improve it. That is a surprisingly strong opinion. Strawberry sauce ruins perfectly good cheesecake." Adrien nodded with unnecessary seriousness. "I will remember that." Ryan smiled, unaware that 3 tables away, a restaurant manager was quietly telling a server not to interrupt unless Adrien requested something. Adrien noticed everything. He noticed the manager watching him, the 2 businessmen near the bar pretending not to recognize him, and Marcus Reed standing near the private staircase with an expression that clearly asked why Adrien was still sitting downstairs. Normally, Adrien would have ended the misunderstanding within seconds. He had come to Bellamy for a private business meeting scheduled upstairs at 8. Ryan was supposed to be nothing more than a stranger who had confused table 21 with another table. Yet Adrien found himself unwilling to correct him. "What do you do?" Ryan asked. "I manage several businesses." That sounds suspiciously vague. It is accurate. What kind of businesses? Adrien considered the safest answer. Property, restaurants, transportation, investments. Ryan looked around Bellamy. "Please do not tell me you own this place." Adrien took a slow sip of water. "Would that be a problem? It would explain why everyone acts like you are grading them." Adrien almost smiled. "Do people usually answer your questions directly?" "Eventually. Then perhaps you need more patient friends." "My sister would agree with you." Ryan began describing Megan, including her determination to organize his social life and her belief that every problem could be solved with a calendar invitation. Adrien listened more carefully than Ryan expected. Nobody approached Adrien casually. Conversations usually arrived prepared, rehearsed, and attached to an objective. Ryan had arrived 40 minutes late to somebody else's date and had spent the next half hour criticizing expensive watches, restaurant etiquette, and decorative vegetables. It was strangely refreshing. Their dinner arrived. Although Ryan could not remember ordering, he looked at the beautifully arranged plate and then at Adrien. "Did you order for me?" "You mentioned pasta." "That was 10 minutes ago." "I listen." Ryan paused. "That might be the first impressive thing you have done tonight." Adrien laughed, drawing another startled glance from the manager. Ryan noticed this one. "Okay, seriously. Why does everyone keep looking over here?" "Perhaps they are looking at you." Ryan glanced down at his inexpensive blue sweater. "Absolutely not." Before Adrien could answer, Marcus approached. He was tall, professionally dressed, and visibly confused to find Adrien eating dinner with an Omega he had never seen before. "Mr. Hayes, the people upstairs are asking whether the meeting has been moved." Ryan's fork stopped halfway to his plate. Adrien's eyes shifted to Marcus with a quiet warning. Marcus understood immediately. "I can tell them there has been a delay," he added. Ryan looked between them. "Hayes." Adrien remained calm. "Yes. I thought your last name was Brooks." Adrien had never said that, but pointing it out would only make the situation worse. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Megan told me Daniel Brooks worked in insurance." "I definitely do not work in insurance." "Then what exactly do you do?" Adrien was silent for 1 second too long. Ryan slowly placed his fork down. The strange service, the nervous manager, the private meeting upstairs, and the man standing beside their table suddenly felt like pieces of a puzzle Ryan should have noticed earlier. "Daniel," Ryan said carefully, "what is your first name?" Adrien looked directly at him. "That is a more complicated question than it should be." Ryan folded his arms and waited. Adrien could have ended the confusion with one sentence, but something about Ryan's expression made him hesitate. It was not fear. It was suspicion mixed with annoyance, as though Adrien were a puzzle that had personally offended him. "My first name is Adrien," he finally said. Ryan stared at him. "Adrien Brooks?" "No, of course not." Ryan leaned back and looked toward the ceiling. "Megan is never going to let me forget this." Marcus remained beside the table, clearly struggling to understand why Adrien had not dismissed the stranger 10 minutes ago. "Mr. Hayes, should I move the 8 o'clock meeting?" he asked. "Yes." Marcus blinked. "To what time?" "Tomorrow." That answer surprised Marcus even more. "Tomorrow," he repeated. "Correct." Marcus nodded and walked away without another question. Ryan watched him disappear toward the private staircase. "You just canceled a meeting because I sat here?" "I postponed it." "That does not make this less strange." Adrien rested one hand beside his glass. "Would you prefer that I leave?" Ryan should have said yes. Instead, curiosity won. "I would prefer that you explain why you did not tell me I had the wrong person." Adrien considered the question. "You sat down with remarkable confidence." "That is not an explanation." "You accused me of being 40 minutes late before introducing yourself." "Also not an explanation." "Then you told me money was not a personality." Ryan felt warmth rise into his face. "I stand by that." "I know. That is why the conversation became interesting." Ryan studied him. "So you knew immediately?" "Immediately. And you just decided to see how long it would take me to notice?" At first. Adrien's expression became quieter. "Then I decided I was enjoying dinner." Ryan did not know what to do with that answer. Before he could respond, The restaurant manager appeared personally with a fresh basket of bread. "Mr. Hayes, your usual table upstairs is available whenever you would like it." Ryan looked at Adrien. "Your usual table?" The manager realized too late that he had said something important. Adrien thanked him, and the man retreated. Ryan lowered his voice. "You are definitely not a guy who sells insurance. We established that. And apparently you have a private table here. Sometimes. That word is doing a lot of work tonight." Adrien smiled. Ryan reached for his phone. "Fine. I am searching your name." Adrien's smile disappeared. "You could simply ask me. I have been asking you for 20 minutes. Ryan unlocked the screen, but before he could type, a message appeared from Megan. He opened it. Megan had sent a photograph of a cheerful blonde man standing beside a golden retriever. Underneath were 4 words. "Daniel is wearing a blue tie." Ryan slowly looked across the table. Adrien's tie was black. "That is unfortunate," Adrien said. "Do not." Ryan pointed at him. "You do not get to find this funny." "I am trying not to." Ryan stared at Megan's photograph again. "So where is the actual Daniel?" "Presumably somewhere wondering where you are." As if summoned by the question, Ryan's phone vibrated again. A new message appeared from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, Ryan. This is Daniel Brooks. I am at table 12. Did I get the time wrong?" Ryan closed his eyes. "I am going to move to another state." "That seems excessive. You are not helping." Ryan opened the restaurant menu and checked the small printed table number at the bottom. 21. Megan had written table 12 in her original message. Ryan had reversed the digits while rushing through the door. He looked up at Adrien, whose calm expression was becoming increasingly suspicious. "All right, Adrien Hayes. No more vague answers. Who exactly have I been having dinner with?" Adrien held Ryan's gaze for a long moment, and the humor that had softened his expression disappeared. "Adrien Hayes," he said. "That is the answer." Ryan gave him an unimpressed look. "That is your name. I asked who you are." Before Adrien could respond, Ryan typed the name into his phone. The search results appeared almost instantly. His expression changed as he scrolled. Hayes Holdings. Commercial property. Freight companies. Restaurants. Investment firms. Newspaper photographs showed Adrien stepping out of black cars, entering private events, and standing beside some of the most influential business figures in the city. Then Ryan noticed the careful language repeated across several articles. Powerful connections. Private organization. Old family network. Business empire. A reputation for settling complicated disputes quietly. Ryan had lived in the city long enough to understand what polite journalism was avoiding saying directly. He lowered the phone. "You are that Adrien Hayes." "Apparently." "Do not apparently me." Ryan glanced around the dining room again, and everything suddenly made sense. The manager's nervous attention. Marcus interrupting carefully. The private room upstairs. The guests who had gone silent when they recognized Adrien. Ryan felt foolish for missing every clue. "You knew I thought you were Daniel Brooks." "Yes." "You knew I was supposed to be at table 12. I learned that part recently. But you knew I was not supposed to be sitting here." "Yes." Ryan stared at him. "And you let me talk for almost an hour." Adrien nodded once. "You let me complain about wealthy alphas while sitting there wearing a watch that probably costs more than my car." Adrien glanced at the watch. "I was not going to mention that." "Excellent instinct." Ryan grabbed his phone and stood. Across the restaurant, a blond man in a blue tie was sitting alone at table 12, checking the entrance every few seconds. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. "That poor man thinks I abandoned him. You could still join him." Ryan looked down at Adrien. "Is that what you want?" The question seemed to surprise them both. Adrien could have answered easily. Instead, he said, "No." Ryan's irritation faltered. Adrien continued, "But what I want is not the only thing that matters." That was not the response Ryan expected from a man whose reputation suggested he rarely needed permission for anything. "Then why did you keep this going?" Ryan asked. "You could have corrected me the second I sat down." Adrien looked toward the city lights beyond the window. "Because you did not recognize me. That is your explanation?" "It is part of it." His voice became quieter. "Most people change the moment they hear my name. They become careful, agreeable. Some become nervous. Others suddenly remember something they want." He looked back at Ryan. "You sat down, accused me of being late, insulted my watch, criticized the restaurant, and told me I needed a better personality. I said money was not a personality." The distinction was devastating. Ryan almost smiled, then stopped himself. "You still lied by omission." "I did." Adrien did not defend himself. And I apologize. Ryan studied him, searching for manipulation and finding something more inconvenient: sincerity. His phone vibrated again. Daniel had sent another polite message asking whether everything was all right. Ryan sighed. I need to fix the mess at table 12. Adrien nodded. You should. Ryan took 2 steps, then turned back. For what it is worth, you were more interesting before I knew who you were. Adrien's expression softened. For what it is worth, you were more interesting because you did not. Ryan walked away, leaving Adrien alone at table 21. Marcus appeared a minute later. Should I have the upstairs meeting restored? Adrien looked at Ryan, apologizing to Daniel across the restaurant. No, Marcus followed his gaze. Then what are you waiting for? Adrien watched Ryan laugh awkwardly at something Daniel said, and for the first time that evening, the most powerful man in the room looked uncertain. I think, Adrien said quietly, I am waiting to see whether a mistake can become a choice. Ryan lasted exactly 12 minutes at table 12 before admitting the evening was beyond repair. Daniel Brooks was kind, polite, and genuinely funny, which somehow made Ryan feel worse. After apologizing twice, Ryan finally explained that he had reversed the table number and accidentally spent most of an hour talking to someone else. Daniel stared at him for a second before laughing. That might be the best blind date excuse I have ever heard. Ryan groaned. I promise I am not inventing it. I believe you. Daniel glanced toward table 21, but Adrien was already gone. Was the other guy at least interesting? Ryan thought about the question longer than he should have. Unfortunately, Daniel smiled with immediate understanding. They finished coffee instead of dinner and agreed that neither of them felt the kind of connection Megan had hoped for. By the time Ryan stepped outside Bellamy, the embarrassment should have been over. Instead, Adrien's words followed him all the way home. Most people change the moment they hear my name. Ryan hated that he understood what Adrien meant. He hated even more that part of him wondered what would have happened if he had never discovered the mistake. The next morning, Megan called before 9. You sat at the wrong table? Good morning to you too. Daniel told me. Of course he did. Ryan, I wrote table 12. I know. How did you get 21? Apparently, I become dyslexic under social pressure. Megan laughed for nearly a minute. Ryan waited. Are you finished? Not remotely. Who was at 21? Ryan opened his refrigerator and stared inside without seeing anything. Adrien Hayes. Silence. Megan. The Adrien Hayes? Apparently, there is only one. You accidentally had dinner with Adrien Hayes? For almost an hour. And you are alive? Ryan shut the refrigerator. He is a businessman, not a dragon. Ryan, people write entire articles without explaining what that man actually does. I noticed. Megan lowered her voice as though Adrien might somehow hear through the phone. What did you talk about? Cheesecake. Another silence followed. I am going back to bed, Megan said. 3 days passed. Ryan returned to his normal routine, working from a neighborhood coffee shop near his apartment where the tables wobbled and nobody cared what kind of watch anyone wore. By Monday afternoon, he had almost convinced himself that Bellamy was simply a ridiculous story he would eventually tell at family gatherings. Then the bell above the cafe door rang. Ryan looked up from his laptop and forgot what he had been typing. Adrien Hayes walked inside alone. No Marcus. No tailored overcoat that probably cost a month of Ryan's rent. Just dark jeans, a gray sweater, and the same calm expression that had irritated Ryan across table 21. Several customers glanced at him, but nobody seemed to recognize him. Adrien ordered coffee, waited like everyone else, then walked toward Ryan's table. Ryan watched him approach. You are either lost again or developing a strange relationship with incorrect tables. Adrien stopped beside the empty chair. I checked. This one does not have a number. Convenient. Adrien gestured toward the seat. May I sit here? Ryan noticed the question. At Bellamy, Ryan had entered Adrien's space without permission. This time Adrien was waiting for an answer. You came all the way here to ask that. No. I came to apologize properly. Ryan closed his laptop halfway. You already apologized. I explained myself. That is not always the same thing. Adrien placed his coffee on the table, but remained standing. I should have corrected you immediately. I did not, because I liked being treated like someone you did not need to impress. That was selfish. Ryan studied him. You canceled a meeting for a stranger. Yes. You let that stranger insult your watch. Repeatedly. And now you tracked down his coffee shop. Adrien paused. That sounds considerably worse when you say it. Ryan laughed despite himself. Adrien smiled. There is something else. Of course there is. I would like to take you to dinner. Ryan stared at him. A real dinner? Yes. Where I know your actual name? Preferably. And we both agree we are on the same date. That would simplify things. Ryan let the silence stretch just long enough to make Adrien uncertain. Then he pushed the empty chair out with his foot. Sit down first. Adrien did. Ryan reopened his laptop, hiding a smile. You can ask me again after coffee. Adrien asked again 27 minutes later, after Ryan finished correcting the colors on a client logo and Adrien finished a coffee he clearly did not like but refused to complain about. Dinner with me Friday? Ryan closed his laptop. You remembered to specify the day. Progress. Is that a yes? It is a yes, with conditions. Adrien leaned back. I expected conditions. No private dining room. No restaurant where the manager looks like he is waiting for permission to breathe. No mysterious business meeting upstairs. Adrien considered this. Anything else? Somewhere normal. Define normal. Ryan smiled. If the menu comes on a wooden board and the waiter explains the emotional journey of the tomatoes, we are leaving. Adrien laughed. Friday evening, Ryan discovered that Adrien had listened. The restaurant was a small Italian place in a renovated brick building, with checkered napkins, handwritten specials, and entrees that cost less than $30. Adrien was already waiting when Ryan arrived. 5 minutes early, Ryan said, checking his phone. I wanted to avoid another accusation. Good strategy. Ryan sat across from him and deliberately examined the table. Adrien raised an eyebrow. Problem. Just confirming this is the correct one. I checked twice. Their second dinner felt completely different from the first because there was nothing accidental holding them there. Ryan knew exactly who Adrien was, and Adrien no longer had the protection of anonymity. That made the silences more honest. Ryan learned that Adrien disliked olives, had never understood the appeal of reality television, and owned several expensive cars but preferred driving an old pickup truck that had belonged to his father. Adrien learned that Ryan had become a freelance graphic designer after quitting an advertising agency where every creative idea required 6 meetings and 12 emails. He learned that Ryan collected used mystery novels and always read the final page last, no matter how tempted he was. That should not be impressive, Adrien said. But somehow it is. Self-control is a rare quality. You sat at the wrong table because you reversed 2 numbers. We agreed not to weaponize history. By dessert, Ryan realized he had stopped thinking about Adrien's reputation. There was no manager hovering nearby, no Marcus appearing with urgent messages, and no room full of people watching them. There was only an alpha listening while Ryan explained why graphic designers secretly judged terrible restaurant menus. After dinner, Adrien walked with him 3 blocks toward the parking garage. The October air was cool, and downtown traffic moved steadily beneath the streetlights. At the entrance, Ryan stopped. I had a good time. Adrien nodded. So did I. That sounded dangerously sincere. I can try again with less enthusiasm. Ryan laughed. Adrien did not ask for another date immediately. He simply said goodnight and let Ryan leave. That restraint stayed with Ryan longer than any grand gesture could have. Over the next few weeks, dinners became coffee, coffee became weekend walks, and weekend walks became ordinary evenings with takeout at Ryan's apartment. Adrien turned out to be terrible at choosing movies because he rejected every description as unrealistic. Ryan discovered that the intimidating alpha could spend 15 minutes comparing 2 nearly identical cartons of orange juice at a grocery store. Adrien learned Ryan always ordered extra fries and then claimed he was not hungry enough to finish them. The more ordinary Adrien became, the more Ryan liked him. That should have made everything easier. Instead, it created a new problem. One evening, Ryan attended a business reception with Adrien. The moment they entered, conversations changed. People approached Adrien with careful smiles and measured words. Ryan watched the warm, dry humor he knew disappear behind a polished expression. For the first time, Ryan saw the version of Adrien the city saw. Then a well-dressed man glanced at Ryan and quietly asked someone nearby, "Who is the Omega with Hayes?" Ryan heard the answer. Nobody important. Probably temporary. Adrien did not hear it. Ryan did. And suddenly Ryan wondered whether the man he knew over takeout and bad movies could really exist in Adrien's world, or only outside it. Ryan stayed at the reception for another 20 minutes, but the words followed him from one conversation to the next. Nobody important. Probably temporary. Adrien introduced him to a real estate developer, 2 restaurant owners, and a city arts director, always simply saying, "This is Ryan." Nobody was openly rude. That almost made it worse. They were polished, curious, and careful, but Ryan could feel the question behind their smiles. Why was someone like him standing beside Adrien Hayes? By the time they left, Ryan was unusually quiet. Adrien noticed before they reached the parking garage. "What happened?" "Nothing." Adrien stopped walking. "You have criticized my taste in movies for 40 minutes without taking a breath. You have been silent since we left the ballroom. Something happened." Ryan looked at him. "Do you like me because I did not know who you were?" Adrien's expression changed. "Where did that come from? Answer it." Adrien took a moment. "That was why I noticed you." Ryan nodded slowly. "That is not the same question." "No, it is not." Adrien glanced toward the street, gathering his thoughts. "The first night, you were different because you had no reason to perform around me. But that is not why I kept asking to see you." "Then why?" "Because you make terrible coffee and insist it is better than mine. Because you argue with movie endings. Because you remember the names of servers and ask how their day is going. Because you spent 30 minutes redesigning a menu for a restaurant that never asked you to. Because when I am with you, silence does not feel like something I have to control." Ryan had expected a polished answer. Instead, Adrien sounded almost uncomfortable saying something so personal. "Someone called me temporary tonight," Ryan said. Adrien's face became still. "Who?" "That is exactly why I did not want to tell you." "Why?" "Because I do not want you fixing every uncomfortable moment just because you can." Adrien absorbed that without argument. Ryan continued, "At my apartment, you are Adrien. At that reception, you became Mr. Hayes. Everyone measured every word around you. I started wondering which version is real." Adrien looked toward the glass doors behind them. "Both." Ryan frowned. "That is not very reassuring." "It is the truth." Adrien leaned against the concrete railing, suddenly looking less like the untouchable man from the ballroom. "I learned a long time ago that reputation can keep complicated businesses orderly. People expect a certain version of me, so I give them one." "And me?" "You met me before you met the reputation." Ryan looked down. "Maybe that is the problem. What happens when those worlds stop staying separate?" Adrien did not answer immediately. "I do not know." Ryan looked up, surprised by the admission. "You usually have an answer for everything. You have been damaging that reputation." Ryan smiled despite himself. Adrien continued, "I can tell you that you belong anywhere you choose to stand, but that would only be words. I would rather prove that I do not need you hidden away in coffee shops and quiet restaurants to want you beside me." Ryan studied him. "How?" "There is a charity dinner next Saturday. Public. Crowded. Full of people who know exactly who I am." "That sounds terrible." "It usually is." Ryan laughed. "And you want me there?" "Only if you want to come." That distinction mattered. Adrien was offering a place, not issuing an expectation. Ryan thought about the first night at Bellamy, when a simple mistake had placed him across from a man everyone else approached carefully. Now there would be no mistake to hide behind. "All right," Ryan said. "I will come." Adrien nodded. "Good." Ryan pointed at him. "But if anyone serves tomatoes with an emotional journey, I am leaving." Adrien smiled. "Then I will leave with you." The charity dinner was held in the ballroom of the Langford Hotel, where crystal lights reflected across polished floors, and nearly every guest seemed to recognize Adrien before he crossed the entrance. Ryan noticed the familiar transformation immediately. Adrien's shoulders became straighter, his expression more controlled, and conversations seemed to reorganize themselves around his presence. But this time, Adrien did something different. He did not walk ahead and expect Ryan to follow. He stayed beside him. When business leaders approached, Adrien introduced Ryan without hesitation. "This is Ryan Mitchell. He is here with me." For simple words, but Ryan understood their purpose. Adrien was not hiding him, explaining him, or turning him into an accessory. For the first hour, Ryan almost relaxed. Then Adrien was called away to speak with the event organizer, leaving Ryan near a table of desserts. He was examining a suspiciously artistic piece of cheesecake when 2 guests stopped nearby. One of them recognized him. "You are Ryan, right?" "That depends on whether someone told you something embarrassing." The man smiled. "Only that you are the Omega who accidentally sat at Adrien Hayes' table." Ryan's amusement faded slightly. That story travels fast. It is memorable. Most people spend months trying to get Hayes's attention. You managed it by sitting in the wrong chair. His companion laughed. I suppose everyone gets lucky once. Neither comment was openly cruel, but Ryan heard the implication clearly. Accident. Luck. Temporary curiosity. He set down his plate. Across the ballroom, Adrien was still speaking with the organizer. Ryan suddenly felt foolish for believing one evening could prove anything. He walked toward the quieter hotel lobby, needing space to think. A minute later, footsteps approached behind him. Ryan. He turned. Adrien had followed. You were in the middle of a conversation. You left. That does not mean you have to follow me. Adrien stopped several feet away. No, it means I wanted to. Ryan looked through the lobby windows at the city lights. Someone recognized me as the Omega who sat at your table by mistake. Adrien waited. They said I got lucky. Do you believe them? I do not know. Ryan faced him. If I had known who you were that first night, would you still have wanted me there? Adrien did not answer quickly, and Ryan appreciated that he did not reach for something convenient. Maybe you would have behaved differently, Adrien finally said. Maybe I would have too. We cannot rewrite that night to find out. Ryan's expression fell. Adrien continued. But I know something more important. What? I do not care about the mistake anymore. Adrien's voice was calm, stripped of the formal tone he used inside the ballroom. I care that you stayed long enough for me to become myself. Ryan looked at him silently. The wrong table introduced us, Adrien said. Everything after that was a choice. The coffee shop was a choice. Our second dinner was a choice. Those terrible movies were choices. You picked two of them. I regret both. Ryan almost laughed. Adrien took a small step closer, but left enough distance for Ryan to decide what happened next. I cannot control what people say about you, and I should not try. I can only make my own position clear. I want you beside me when you want to be there. Not because you are an Omega. Not because you were unusual enough to entertain me for one evening. Because you are Ryan. Ryan studied him. And if I decide I hate these events, then we leave. Even if important people are waiting inside. They have phones. Ryan laughed, and the tension finally broke. He looked toward the ballroom doors. For the first time, returning did not feel like entering Adrien's world. It felt like choosing whether to share part of it. Ryan held out his hand. Come on. I never finished my cheesecake. Adrien looked at his hand, then took it gently. The suspicious one. It had decorative strawberries. You hate strawberries on cheesecake. Ryan smiled as they walked back together. You remembered. I told you. I listened. This time, when the ballroom doors opened and dozens of eyes turned toward Adrien Hayes, Ryan did not step behind him. Adrien did not pull him forward. They simply walked in side by side. 4 months later, Ryan walked into Bellamy at exactly 7:15 and stopped just inside the dining room. The restaurant looked almost unchanged. The same warm lights glowed above the tables, the same city skyline stretched beyond the windows, and the same manager greeted Ryan with a smile that was noticeably less nervous than the first time. Good evening, Mr. Mitchell. Ryan smiled back. I am looking for table 21. Right this way. Ryan followed him toward the window and found Adrien already waiting. No private meeting upstairs. No Marcus standing nearby with a schedule. No mystery about why either of them was there. Adrien wore a dark suit, but his tie was blue. Ryan stopped beside the table and looked carefully at the small number. Adrien raised an eyebrow. Problem. Ryan checked it again with exaggerated seriousness. 21. I confirmed it twice. Good. We have both grown. Adrien stood and pulled out Ryan's chair. You are also on time. Do not get used to miracles. Ryan sat, and Adrien returned to his seat across from him. For months had changed things in ways Ryan never expected. Adrien still attended meetings that made entire rooms become quieter, but he also spent Sunday mornings at Ryan's apartment drinking coffee from a chipped mug Megan had given him as a joke. Ryan still preferred neighborhood restaurants to private dining rooms, but he had learned that Adrien's world was not something he needed to fear or imitate. Sometimes Ryan joined him at formal events. Sometimes he stayed home and worked. Neither choice required an explanation. Their relationship had become less about the differences between their lives and more about the ordinary places where those lives met. The server approached with dessert menus before they had even ordered dinner. Ryan looked confused. That seems ambitious. Adrien nodded toward the menu. Check the cheesecake. Ryan opened it. Plain New York style. No fruit sauce. No decorative strawberries. He looked up slowly. Did you interfere with this menu? I made a suggestion. You changed a restaurant menu because I complained about strawberries? I prefer to think I improved it. Ryan laughed. This is exactly the kind of unnecessary use of influence I warned you about. And yet you are smiling. That proves nothing. Dinner passed easily. They talked about Ryan's newest design project, Adrien's plan to renovate an old downtown building, and Megan's continued insistence that she deserved credit for introducing them despite having technically introduced Ryan to Daniel. When dessert arrived, Adrien pushed the cheesecake toward Ryan. No strawberries. You remembered. You still sound surprised every time. Ryan took a bite and nodded approvingly. Acceptable. Adrien smiled. High praise. For a moment, Ryan looked around the restaurant. He remembered rushing through these doors months earlier, embarrassed about being late, and completely certain he knew who was waiting for him. He remembered Adrien allowing the misunderstanding to continue because, for a brief hour, he had been allowed to exist without his reputation entering the room first. Ryan set down his fork. Can I tell you something? Always. I used to think that first night worked because I did not know who you were. Adrien waited. Now I think it worked because neither of us had time to become who we thought the other person expected. Adrien's expression softened. That sounds unusually thoughtful for someone who reversed 2 digits. I was having a meaningful moment. My apologies. Ryan glanced at the table number again. Right table this time. Definitely. Ryan reached across the table and rested his hand over Adrien's. Although the wrong one worked out pretty well. Adrien turned his hand beneath Ryan's and held it gently. I would say exceptionally well. Outside the window, the city moved beneath thousands of lights. Inside, nobody was pretending, nobody was confused, and nobody was there by accident anymore. Ryan had once entered this restaurant searching for a stranger someone else had chosen for him. Tonight he knew exactly who was sitting across from him, knew the complicated world that came with him, and understood something far more important than getting a table number right. Sometimes a mistake could open a door, but only choice could turn what waited on the other side into something worth keeping.